4.1 is right around the corner, and with that brings Neuvelette. So in this video, let's go through his whole kit and see just what he can do. First thing that we need to note down is that Neuvelette is a Hydro Catalyst charge attack DPS character. That is a bit of a mouthful to say, but that is how he deals his damage. His primary source of damage will be his charge attack, which actually functions like a charge up mechanic. So you will initiate the holding of a charge attack, and then you'll enter this sigil mode where you levitate and charge up a sigil, and then unleash a massive beam of water, dealing ticking damage at the enemies that you are aiming at. And much like the Hydro Traveler's elemental skill, if Neuvillette's HP is above 50%, he will continuously lose HP while using this charge attack, meaning that he can use one of the new artifact sets and generally will function with this new HP loss and heal mechanic that Fontaine introduces. As for the elemental skill and elemental burst, they play primarily supporting roles into his kit, mainly there for the creation of the source water droplets that let him charge up his charge attack much faster, but I'll touch on that once we get into the other parts of his kit. And as for the scaling of his charge attack, well, it is purely based on max HP. If we take a look at here, the charge attack Equitable Judgment, which is the name of said charge attack, it is purely based on the max HP, much like all of Yalan's kit. Everything scales with HP. So if you want to make this portion of his damage the highest, you're gonna want to go for only HP. Attack percentage isn't going to do much for you here. And the same can be said for his skill and his burst. Both of them only scale with max HP, so do not build attack percent or any form of attack on the character, as you are not gaining any amount of value. Moving on to the passives, his first one will let you gain a pretty hefty charge attack Equitable Judgment damage bonus just from causing reactions with other characters in your party. You can get a total of 3 stacks, and on the high end, it gives you 160% of its original damage, which is always great. As for the second passive, this gives you a Hydro damage bonus based on your HP percentage above 30%. So for every 1% above 30%, you gain 0.6 Hydro damage bonus to a total of 30%. So pretty much try to stay at 100% HP, which will be kind of tough because he does have that passive HP loss from the charge attack. And as for the third passive, it's just moving faster underwater. Now, taking a look at Neuvillette's standard kit, it's actually quite synergetic with itself. You have to understand that he's a charge attack character. You primarily use his charge attack, and it is kind of different from other charge attack characters like Hu Tao, for example, where you spam charge attack. Neuvilette is kind of like a charge and hold for a short period of time, and then rinse and repeat that process. And the other thing to take away is, as I mentioned before, his elemental skill and elemental burst work synergetically with his charge attack, as his charge attack can be charged faster by consuming source water droplets. And the way to generate source water droplets is through his elemental skill as well as his elemental burst. And also characters like the Hydro Traveler, he can also create some of them, but that's kind of a bit more of a finicky method. So he's quite a synergetic character, and he's going to be pretty powerful, I think, standalone. But he obviously increases with Constellation, so let's take a look at those. Constellation 1, Venerable Institution, will essentially make the tempo of your gameplay a fair bit faster, as you'll start off with 1 stack of your first passive, essentially getting you closer to that higher damage bonus to your charge attack. And also at the end here, it'll give you a higher interruption to resistance, which is going to be an incredibly powerful thing, as this character can be knocked out of his charge attack, which is not a very useful thing, but a very useful constellation nonetheless, as interruption resistance is crucial. Overall, a pretty decent C1. Going down to C2, Juridical Exhortation. This will now also increase the value of his first passive. Now, each Draconic Glory stack will increase the crit damage of your charge attack by 14% to a maximum of 42%. On top of getting that 160% damage bonus, you'll now also get a chunk of crit damage, which is always useful for a C2. And for this one, I'll say this is pretty high value, as crit damage is incredibly powerful for a main DPS. C4 drastically drops in value here. Crown of the Commiseration. When Neuvelette is on the field and is healed, 1 source water droplet will be generated. This can occur once every 4 seconds. Practically useless, as it doesn't actually do anything. Now moving on to C6, Wrathful Recompense. This essentially makes it so whenever you absorb source water droplets with his charge attack, you'll increase the duration of his charge attack Equitable Judgment by 1 second per water source droplet. And then Additionally, whilst you're hitting enemies with the charge attack, you'll fire off 2 additional beams every 2 seconds, each of them dealing 10% of Neuvillette's max HP as hydro damage. Damage dealt this way is counted as charge attack damage, equitable judgment, which is fine and dandy, but this constellation is a budget version of Yelan's Constellation 6, which overall doesn't sound too good to me, as, well, Neuvillette is a main DPS, and it's worse than Yelan's supporting C6, so that's all I'll say for now. Taking a quick squiz at the weapons, his best in slot weapon is going to be his signature, the Tome of the Eternal Flow, essentially a weapon prioritized for him. Crit damage is the substat here, which is very nice, as well as a HP increase on the ability, with also the classic HP increase and decrease mechanic that Fontaine characters usually have. Charge attack damage will be increased by 14% for 4 seconds, max 3 stacks, triggerable every 0.3 seconds, and then when you have 3 stacks or refresh a 3rd stack, 8 energy will be restored. A very good ability and a very good weapon for Neuvilette. His best in slot, you're not going to get much better than this. But a good substitute for the 5-star category will be the Lost Prayer of the Sacred Winds, at least in my opinion. If you're looking for a stat stick, the Kagra's Verity might work, but if you're looking for a universally good weapon, I think the Lost Prayer to the Sacred Winds is going to be the next best one. Movement speed increased by 10 always works, and then when in battle, gain an 8% elemental damage bonus every 4 seconds, max 4 stacks, lasts until the character falls or leaves combat. In my opinion, this is the next best one, as you do spend a fair bit of time on field with Neuvilette doing the whole combo, so you can at least get, I'd say, 2 stacks of that elemental damage bonus, and as well, it's a crit rate substat, which is always good for this character, because it's a DPS stat. As for the 4 stars, I do believe Dodoco Tails, which is not obtainable anymore, is going to be one of his good weapons, as it is based around charge attack damage. But for those who aren't able to have the Dodoco Tails, because you may not have played during the time of that event, the next best for you for this style of weapon is going to be the Ballad of the Boundless Blue. This one is essentially the same mechanic of your normal attack and charge attacks, buffing your normal attack and charge attacks, kind of like vice versa, but it's at a lower rate. The percentages are slightly lower, as well as the substat is energy recharge on the Ballad of Boundless Blue instead of the attack percentage on the Dodoco Tails. But these two are kind of interchangeable depending on which one you have at higher refinement. If you don't have any of these and you just want another good generic weapon, then after that I recommend the Widsith. This is a classic weapon to go for, nothing really wrong here. Crit damage on the Ascension stat, which is always useful for a main DPS. And then the ability is whenever you switch into this character, you get a random buff, either attack boost, elemental damage boost, or elemental mastery boost. Either or, you'll RNG one of these, it's a 33% chance to get any of them, and it's a universally good weapon for DPS characters. And out of the weapons, these are the ones that I'm going to recommend. I'm going to do some simple recommendations, so use any of these if you have them. If you don't have any of these, then just go for some random attack percent stat stick. Now onto the artifacts. It's a no-brainer. The Marichaser Hunter is going to be his best in slot, normal and charge attack damage plus 15% on the 2 set, with a crit rate increase stacking up to 3 times for 12% up to a whopping 36% crit rate increase just on the 4-piece, so it's a no-brainer that that one will be his best in slot, as it will just make your stat management and stat priority a lot easier to manage. But if you don't have any good pieces for that and you're looking for some older ones, well, Vorukasha's Glow and Nymph's Dream will work, kind of. Vorukasha's Glow is going to go for the bit more HP percentage based mechanic, but the 4-piece has elemental skill and elemental burst damage increased by 10%, with the bonus increasing by 80% for 5 seconds, up to 5 stacks whenever you take damage. But we do know that Neuvelette can take damage, so you're going to be able to get that bonus pretty high, but the bonus is to your skill and burst, so it's not your charge attack, which is where the brunt of your damage is going to be. So bear that in mind with Vorukasha's Glow. As for Nymph's Dream, this one is going to work as it is 2-set hydro damage plus 15% on the 2-piece, but the 4-piece is unfortunately a bit of a 50-50. You have to use a normal charge plunging attack, elemental skill, or elemental burst to get 1 stack of Mirrored Nymph, and so on and so forth. You get up to 1, 2, or 3 stacks, and each of these stacks increases your attack and hydro damage by a certain percentage. Now, these things are good, the hydro damage, but the attack is not going to do anything for you. As we've established, Neuvillette only scales with HP. So if you're in a pinch, if you have no other good pieces, Stream is fine just for the Hydra damage bonus. But if you have any of the other sets at like a decent level, they'll be much better, as you're not getting a weird amount of attack that is practically useless for the character. And as per usual, you can kind of go for any of the old Hydro or HP sets from the older versions of the game. They'll probably work just fine, but I'm going to try to recommend some of the newer stuff as it may work slightly better. Now, when looking at the extensive character list, we need to come to a conclusion or some sort of idea of what kind of teams you're going to be rocking with Neuvelette. Now, first and foremost, double Hydro is going to be, I think, a standard. Neuvelette and another Hydro just to get that extra HP bonus from the 2-set Hydro Resonance. And for that, I'm just going to chuck in a Sanganamiya Kokomi, as she'll be able to heal Neuvelette and keep him above a certain HP threshold, so he retains that Hydro damage bonus, but also give you that HP bonus from the Resonance. So Neuvelette and Sanganamiya Kokomi, or if you don't have a Kokomi, you can go for a Barbara. She'll also work just fine. After that, we also have to establish some characters that you don't want to run. A character like Bennett will not benefit Neuvelette in any way, as Bennett buffs attack and Neuvelette does not need attack. So characters that buff attack percentage in some way, I'm gonna strongly advise against using here. A character that you can use, though, is something like a Kazuha. Kazuha is always strong, his bonuses apply to every element that reacts with Anemo, and so Kazuha can be a very easy addition here. After this, you've kind of got a bit of leeway if you want to maybe try do some reactions like Electro Charged, or maybe a bit of a off-field DPS reactor like a Zhang Ling, Yamiko, Kuki Shinobu if you want to run that. Something along those lines. The fourth character is kind of like a free of choice kind of character, depending on the enemy that you're fighting, depending on the situation that you're in, but it's going to be some sort of off-field reacting DPS. And with that, that's kind of the general team structure you're going to have with Neuvelette. 2 Hydro is a bare minimum in my opinion, with a potential elemental shredder like Kazuha, Sucrose, and or any other choices that you may have, followed by a 4th character, which is going to be the reactor, causing whatever reaction you deem as sufficient for the situation that you're in. And with that, that's my Neuvelette guide. Pretty bare bones and pretty much a lot more simplified than the previous guides. I try to make these a little bit more quicker and understandable. And with that, I hope it was helpful, and I hope you guys did understand how Neuvelette works, or at least on a basic level. If it did, like and sub, and I'll catch you guys in the next guide.